We only pretended to like you for the gifts, my nephew said, laughing with his parents. I nodded, got in my car, and left. The next morning, I called the lawyer and removed them from the will. That evening, they were at my house screaming, "Hey viewers, welcome to the channel. We're just getting started, and your support means a lot. If you enjoy these stories, please consider subscribing and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Thanks for being here." This went down 2 months ago, and I am still getting angry phone calls from family members who think I overreacted. But let me tell you the whole story, and you can decide for yourself. I am 58 years old and never married or had kids. My career in software development took up most of my time, and I never found the right person to settle down with. I have done well financially and own my house, plus have a decent investment portfolio built up over the years. My brother Mike is 4 years younger than me and has 2 kids with his wife Jennifer. Their son Dylan is 16 and their daughter Emma is 14. Mike works in middle management at some company and Jennifer does not work. They live paycheck to paycheck despite Mike making decent money because they spend everything they earn. Since I do not have kids of my own, I have always tried to be a good uncle to Dylan and Emma. I figured it was my job to spoil them a little since their parents are always stressed about money. I have been buying them expensive gifts for birthdays and Christmas since they were little. We are talking serious money here. Latest gaming systems, designer clothes, expensive electronics, you name it. If the kids mention wanting something, I would usually get it for them within a few weeks. Between birthdays, Christmas, and random gifts throughout the year, I probably spend $5,000 or $6,000 annually on those 2 kids. Mike and Jennifer never discouraged this behavior. In fact, they encouraged it by always mentioning when the kids needed something or wanted some expensive item. They would drop hints about Dylan needing a new laptop for school or Emma wanting some designer purse her friends had. I also helped them out financially in other ways over the years. When Mike lost his job a few years back, I loaned them $5,000 to help with mortgage payments. When Jennifer's car broke down, I paid for the repairs, which cost almost $3,000. I have bailed them out more times than I can count. The thing is, I never felt like they were particularly grateful for my help. It always felt more like they expected it from me. Like because I had money and no kids, it was somehow my obligation to support their family lifestyle. Family gatherings were especially weird. Mike and Jennifer would be super nice to me when they needed something, but otherwise they treated me like I was just there. The kids would be excited to see me around gift-giving times, but ignored me the rest of the year. I started noticing this pattern about 2 years ago, but I convinced myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that family relationships are complicated and that maybe I was expecting too much emotional connection. I kept buying gifts and helping with money because I wanted to be a good uncle. Last year, I decided to make Mike and his family the primary beneficiaries of my will. I do not have any other close family, and I figured my money should go to help Dylan and Emma with college and getting started in life. The inheritance would be substantial, probably around $800,000. I told Mike about this decision because I wanted him to know the kids would be taken care of financially. Mike seemed happy about it, but in a way that felt more relieved than grateful. Like he had been worried about money, and now he did not have to be. Jennifer's reaction was even stranger. She started talking about all the things they could do with that money and how it would change their lives. She seemed to be treating my future death like winning the lottery rather than losing a family member. After that conversation, Mike and Jennifer became even more attentive toward me. They started inviting me to dinner more often and including me in family activities. The kids were suddenly more interested in spending time with me and hearing about my work and hobbies. I thought maybe I had been wrong about their feelings toward me. Maybe knowing about the inheritance had made them realize how important I was to the family. I was happy that we seemed to be getting closer and that the kids were showing more interest in having a relationship with me. The truth became clear 3 weeks ago at Dylan's 16th birthday party. Mike and Jennifer had thrown him a big party at their house with all his friends and extended family. I had bought Dylan an expensive gaming setup that cost almost $2,000. Dylan loved the gift and was showing it off to all his friends. Other relatives were commenting on how generous I was and what a great uncle I must be. Mike and Jennifer were basking in the attention and acting like proud parents whose son had such a caring uncle. After most of the guests had left, I was helping clean up in the kitchen while Mike, Jennifer, and Dylan were in the living room. Emma had gone upstairs to her room with some friends who were sleeping over. I could hear the three of them talking through the pass-through window between the kitchen and living room, but I was not really paying attention until Dylan said something that made me stop and listen. Dylan was talking about how annoying it was that I always wanted to hang out with them and how I acted like we were best friends or something. He said I was kind of pathetic for trying so hard to be part of their family when I clearly did not fit in. Jennifer laughed and said that I was harmless and that they just had to put up with me for a little while longer. She said once I died, they would inherit my money and then they would not have to pretend to care about me anymore. Mike chimed in saying that I was useful for now because I bought expensive gifts and helped with money when they needed it. He said dealing with my neediness was a small price to pay for all the financial benefits they got from having me around. Then Dylan said the thing that really got to me. He said we only pretended to like you for the gifts, and all three of them started laughing like it was the funniest joke they had ever heard. Mike and Jennifer were encouraging him and adding their own comments about how easy it was to manipulate me. I stood there in the kitchen holding a stack of dirty plates and feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach. These people I had been supporting for years and putting in my will were openly mocking me and admitting they only tolerated me for money. I quietly put the plates down and walked into the living room. All three of them stopped talking when they saw me, and Mike asked if I was okay because I looked upset. I just nodded and said I needed to get going because I had an early day tomorrow. Dylan thanked me again for the gaming setup and gave me a fake hug goodbye. Jennifer said they should plan another family dinner soon and that we needed to spend more time together. Mike walked me to the door and thanked me for being such a great uncle to his kids. The whole drive home, I kept thinking about what I had heard. These people had been using me for years, and I had been too naive to see it. They were literally counting down the days until I died so they could inherit my money without having to pretend to like me anymore. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying all our interactions over the past few years and seeing them in a completely different light. Every dinner invitation, every family activity, every conversation about the kids had been fake. They were all just performances designed to keep me happy and generous. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told him I wanted to make immediate changes to my will. He said we could start the process right away, but that it would take a few days to properly draft the new documents and get everything witnessed and notarized. I told him that was fine as long as we could get it done as quickly as possible. I removed Mike, Jennifer, Dylan, and Emma as beneficiaries and redirected everything to various charities that I care about. The lawyer was surprised by the sudden change, but handled all the paperwork. Within 3 business days, my will had been completely rewritten and properly executed with witnesses. Instead of Mike's family inheriting $800,000, they would get nothing. The money would go to organizations that actually do good work instead of people who saw me as a walking ATM. I felt better immediately after making the change. For the first time in years, I felt like I had some control over the situation. They could keep pretending to like me for gifts, but they would not be getting the big payoff they were expecting when I died. I decided not to tell them about the will change right away. I wanted to see how long they would keep up their act now that they thought they had locked in their inheritance. It would be interesting to watch them continue performing kindness while I knew the truth. That evening, Mike called to thank me again for Dylan's gift and to see if I wanted to come over for dinner later in the week. Jennifer got on the phone and started talking about planning a family vacation and asking if I wanted to join them. Their fake enthusiasm was nauseating now that I knew what they really thought. I played along for a few days just to see how far they would take it. Mike sent me articles about retirement planning and suggested we should spend more time together since we were both getting older. Jennifer started texting me about Dylan's college plans and how grateful they were to have my support. Dylan even called me directly to ask about my work and whether I might be able to help him get an internship at a tech company someday. The kid who had called me pathetic and annoying was suddenly acting like we were best friends. After about 2 weeks of this fake behavior, I decided I had seen enough. I called Mike and told him I had some important news to share about my estate planning. I suggested they all come over for dinner so we could discuss it as a family. Mike was excited and said they would love to come over. He probably thought I was going to give them more details about their inheritance or maybe even increase the amount. Jennifer immediately started asking what kind of food I wanted her to bring and acting like this was going to be a celebration. The dinner was scheduled for Saturday evening. I spent the day preparing a nice meal because I figured it might be the last time I cooked for them. I also printed out copies of my new will to show them exactly what they had lost. They arrived right on time, and everyone was in a great mood. Dylan was talking about his plans for the gaming setup I had bought him, and Emma was asking if I had seen any designer purses she might like for her birthday next month. Mike brought an expensive bottle of wine and made a toast about family being the most important thing in life. Jennifer kept talking about how lucky the kids were to have such a generous uncle who cared about their future. After dinner, I told them I had something important to discuss about my will. All four of them leaned forward with expectant expressions like they were about to hear really good news. Mike even had his phone out like he was planning to take notes. I pulled out the copies of my new will and handed one to each of them. I explained that I had made some changes to my estate planning and wanted them to see the updated documents. They started reading with excited expressions that quickly changed to confusion and then horror. Jennifer was the first to speak. She asked if there had been some mistake because their names were not anywhere in the will. I told her there was no mistake and that I had intentionally removed them as beneficiaries. Mike demanded to know why I had changed the will. He said we were family and that he had been counting on that inheritance to secure his kid's future. He acted like I had stolen something that belonged to him. I told them very calmly that I had overheard their conversation at Dylan's birthday party. I repeated exactly what each of them had said about pretending to like me for gifts and waiting for me to die so they could inherit my money. The room went completely silent. Dylan's face turned red, and he started to stammer some excuse about just joking around with his parents. Jennifer tried to claim I had misunderstood what they were talking about. Mike got angry and said that even if they had said those things, it was just venting frustration and did not reflect their true feelings. He said family members sometimes say things they do not mean and that I was overreacting to a private conversation. I told them that their true feelings had been made very clear and that I was not interested in being used for money anymore. I said my inheritance would go to people and organizations that actually appreciated it rather than people who saw me as a paycheck. Jennifer started crying and saying that the kids needed that money for college and their future. She said I was punishing Dylan and Emma for something their parents had said, and that was not fair to them. Dylan finally found his voice and tried to apologize. He said he was just being a stupid teenager and did not mean what he had said about pretending to like me. He begged me to reconsider and promised that he really did care about me as his uncle. Emma was crying too and saying she did not understand what was happening. She was only 14 and probably had not been part of the conversation I overheard. I actually felt bad for her, but I was not going to change my decision based on tears. Mike tried one more approach and said that family disagreements should not affect inheritance decisions. He said I was being spiteful and that my money should go to blood relatives regardless of temporary conflicts. I told him that respect and genuine affection matter more to me than blood relations. I said they had shown me their true character, and I was not going to reward that behavior with a massive inheritance. The evening ended with Mike and Jennifer storming out while making threats about contesting the will. Dylan tried to stay behind to keep apologizing, but his parents dragged him away. Emma gave me a confused hug goodbye and said she hoped we could still be family. Over the next few days, I got numerous angry phone calls from Mike and Jennifer. They accused me of being vindictive and cruel for punishing their children over adult disagreements. They said I was destroying the family over hurt feelings. They also tried bringing other relatives into the situation. Mike called our elderly parents and told them I was cutting off his family for no good reason. Jennifer contacted her siblings and painted me as a bitter old man who was taking revenge on innocent children. Most of the family pressure came from people who did not know the full story. When I explained what I had overheard at the birthday party, most relatives understood my decision. A few thought I should forgive them for the sake of the kids, but supported my right to choose my own beneficiaries. My parents were disappointed in Mike and Jennifer, but worried about the impact on Dylan and Emma. I told them I was open to having relationships with the kids if they were genuinely interested and not just performing for inheritance purposes. The lawyer assured me that my new will was legally sound and that any contest would be unsuccessful. He said I had every right to change my beneficiaries for any reason and that the previous will had no binding legal effect. Mike and Jennifer made several more attempts to reconcile over the following weeks. They invited me to family dinners and sent the kids to call me with invitations to various activities. I declined everything because their motives were obviously financial. Dylan wrote me a long letter apologizing for his comments and asking for another chance to prove he cared about me. The letter was clearly coached by his parents and felt like another manipulation attempt. I did not respond to it. Emma sent me a drawing she had made with a note saying she missed spending time with me. This felt more genuine since she had not been part of the conversation that started this whole situation. I sent her a note back saying I missed her too. The most recent development was Mike showing up at my house last week demanding that I restore their inheritance. He said his family was struggling financially and needed the security of knowing they would inherit my money someday. I told Mike that their financial struggles were not my responsibility and that they should have thought about consequences before openly mocking me. He said I was being unreasonable and that families should forgive each other for mistakes. The conversation ended with me telling Mike that they had made their true feelings clear and that I was not interested in being used anymore. He left angry and has not contacted me since then. I have been much happier since cutting them out of my life and my will. I no longer feel obligated to buy expensive gifts or bail them out of financial problems. I can spend my money on things that actually matter to me instead of people who only pretend to care. The charities that will inherit my money do important work and will actually appreciate the donations. They will not be sitting around waiting for me to die so they can cash in on my generosity. Some people think I am being too harsh, but I disagree. Mike and Jennifer are adults who made calculated decisions to use me for money while mocking me behind my back. They taught their kids to participate in this deception and showed them that family relationships are transactional. Dylan is old enough to understand the impact of his words and actions. He chose to participate in ridiculing me, and now he has to live with the consequences of that choice. Emma is younger, and I might reconsider her situation in the future if she shows genuine interest in having a relationship. The whole experience taught me that money changes family dynamics in ways that are not always healthy. People started treating me differently once they knew about potential inheritance, and their true motivations became clear over time. I am glad I discovered their real feelings while I am still alive to do something about it. Imagine if I had died thinking these people cared about me only to have them celebrate my death as a financial windfall. At least now I know where I stand. My advice to anyone in a similar situation is to pay attention to how family members treat you and whether their affection seems conditional on financial benefits. Real relationships should not be based on inheritance expectations or gift-giving obligations. I plan to live many more years and enjoy spending my money on myself and causes I believe in. Mike's family can figure out their own financial problems without counting on inheriting from the uncle they only pretended to like.